Let me start with a reality every oncology administrator knows. The accounts receivable queue never gets smaller on its own. While one claim is being reworked, 30 more land behind it. The stakes in this specific queue are severe. According to the American Society of Clinical Oncology, drug costs represent 60 to 80% of total oncology practice revenue. That is the vast majority of every dollar collected. This chart visualizes that vulnerability. When a practice bills for a $40,000 chemotherapy infusion, a single-digit error in the J-code calculation does not result in a partial payment. It results in a complete denial, wiping that revenue block to zero. In general medicine, a coding discrepancy might require a routine correction. In oncology, that hard denial demands a fully documented appeal, often a peer-to-peer review, and weeks of uncompensated staff time before a single dollar reaches the bank. Practices operate under overlapping compliance frameworks simultaneously. Medicare Part B rules, 340B pricing obligations, clinical trial guidelines, and step therapy exemptions all apply at once. Because of these overlapping frameworks, nearly 30% of oncology claims face initial denials. For a practice billing $5 million a year, that is $1.5 million requiring rework. The manual burden to secure these approvals is heavy. The American Medical Association reports practices complete an average of 43 prior authorization requests per week, consuming roughly 12 hours of physician time. When high denial rates collide with complex, overlapping documentation rules, administrative bottlenecks compound rapidly. This severely delays cash flow and directly threatens the liquidity required to keep an oncology practice operational. This creates the queue spiral. New commercial and Medicare denials arrive much faster than a single biller can manually review and rework them. The process is fragmented across dozens of individual payer portals. Each commercial plan requires a separate login, enforces a different session timeout, and demands a completely distinct documentation upload process. The instinctual response to a growing backlog is to hire more in-house accounts receivable staff to handle the volume. But the math of internal hiring rarely works. The fully loaded cost of a single in-house oncology AR caller, including salary, taxes, benefits, and training, runs between $55,000 and $75,000 per year. Relying on a single specialized employee also creates a critical point of failure. If an experienced oncology biller is out sick for a week, a full week of claims ages directly into the next risk bracket. Time is the enemy of revenue recovery. High-functioning practices resolve denials within 40 days. After a claim crosses the 60-day mark without resolution, the probability of full recovery drops sharply. Here, we see a visual representation of an aging claim. At 90 days, claims often exceed payer timely filing limits. This mathematically converts earned clinical revenue into permanent write-offs. A generalist biller pulled in to fix the backlog will struggle. Without specific training in J-code nuances and 340B compliance, they cannot successfully navigate the complex clinical appeals required by major payers. Spending $75,000 to hire an untrained generalist to fight a 90-day oncology backlog does not solve the queue spiral. It mathematically accelerates the revenue leakage. High-functioning practices are bypassing the generalist pool entirely. They are outsourcing daily accounts receivable follow-up to dedicated external teams embedded directly into their workflow. These are not entry-level staff. They are specialists strictly requiring AAPC and AHIMA credentials to effectively manage precise oncology billing conventions. This model operates natively within the practice's existing software infrastructure. There are no clunky screen-sharing workarounds or secondary data exports. Specialists work directly inside major EMR platforms, including Epic, Athena, and eClinicalWorks, ensuring zero lag in patient data access. Practices are assigned the exact same specialist every day. This eliminates the errors common in shared pool models, where remote workers rotate constantly through different clinics. Integration is systematic. The process begins with a kickoff call to map the practice's specific clinical trial protocols and unique payer mix. Native access to the EMR and internal communication tools is securely established within 48 hours. The dedicated specialist then assumes control of the daily follow-up, systematically working through the aged claims queue. Administrators maintain continuous visibility through key performance dashboards tracking daily throughput, accuracy rates, and exact return on investment. By integrating credentialed experts directly into the native EMR, practices bypass the typical 6-month training lag of new hires and immediately apply specialized pressure to their oldest, highest-risk claims. A mature oncology accounts receivable queue contains thousands of claims, sitting at wildly different stages of the revenue cycle and carrying vastly different financial risks. A $40,000 CAR T-cell therapy claim sitting at day 58 carries an entirely different level of urgency than a $200 administration code at day 15. To manage this complexity, modern external teams utilize AI-augmented workload routing. The system automatically scans the backlog, pulling high-value claims mathematically closest to permanent write-off thresholds to the top. The routing protocol then assigns these highest-risk claims to specific credentialed specialists experienced with that exact payer type. It also scans the clinical documentation, proactively flagging the specific cases where coverage criteria indicate a physician peer-to-peer review will be required. Before new claims even enter the queue, automated predictive validation scrubs the submissions to catch code mismatches, preventing the majority of avoidable denials from happening in the first place. When follow-up is necessary, the system generates scripted, payer-specific appeals referencing strict NCCN guidelines, which yield vastly higher success rates than generic phone inquiries. This predictive management guarantees that claim throughput remains highly consistent, preventing backlogs from forming even during a practice's busiest volume periods. AI-augmented routing actively protects earned clinical revenue by calculating strict mathematical risk, entirely replacing the flawed human habit of working a queue simply from top to bottom. When we compare an isolated in-house billing setup against an AI-augmented external model like Staffingly, the financial difference is definitive. Maintaining just one generalist in-house accounts receivable employee costs a practice up to $75,000 annually when fully loaded with taxes and benefits. Outsourcing that exact same position through Staffingly's single-seat rate costs $20,748 per year. That is a 70% reduction in operational cost, while simultaneously upgrading the seat from a generalist biller to a dedicated oncology coding specialist. This infrastructure is fully operational in 14 days, from the initial workflow mapping to live claim resolution inside your EMR. This is an established scale. Over 800 practices actively trust this model to manage their daily revenue cycles. Patient data is secured from day one by enterprise-grade compliance frameworks, including HIPAA, SOC 2, ISO 27001, and HITrust certifications. Practices operate with true month-to-month flexibility. There are no long-term contracts, allowing administrators to scale seats up or down with just 30 days' notice. Detailed weekly dashboards deliver real-time performance metrics directly to the CFO, proving the return on investment without requiring them to dig through clinical software. Administrators no longer have to suffer through an exhausting 6-month cycle of posting jobs, interviewing, and training generalists. You get immediate accountability from an external team built strictly for this task. You can validate the system directly in your own environment. Start a 30-day risk-free trial at staffingly.com and let a dedicated team clear oldest claims. Mastering oncology revenue is no longer about trying to hire more staff. It is an infrastructure decision, one that high-functioning practices have already made.